This is your time where you're watching it on the YouTube channel. I am periodically doing some YouTube lives here as I drive to work. Don't worry, everybody, I'm not interacting with the screen, but you can leave some comments at the bottom so I can look at them when I park and I finish up the podcast. So this is completely hands-free. Now, if you guys are listening to the podcast itself, you can actually start commenting on Spotify as well. I'll do my best to answer those too. This is going to be on the topic of athletic pubalgia today. Athletic pubalgia, for those of you who are not aware of it, we have endless YouTube videos and podcasts about the topic already. There are some AKAs involved with it, such as sports hernia, core muscle injury, Moore's groin. I think there's one more. I'm just forgetting at the moment. But generally speaking, it's lower abdominal or pubic bone pain associated to athletic endeavors. It tends to come on when you're more active, and it goes away when you're taking some rest. And for a lot of people that I've spoke with about it on our virtual or telehealth sessions, is they feel like they're just having to pay the price after doing the exercise or the activity, and then they rest for about a week and they do it again, and it's kind of like Groundhog's Day. It's like every Sunday they play, and then they feel like really bad for that remainder of that week, and then it goes away on Friday or Saturday, and then it comes back again. So I had some discussions with people recently about it. We do offer phone calls at our office, and we do our best to educate people, but obviously in a public way like this is much easier. So I'll just go through some of the tips and some insight that I got from the callers that we had. One of them discussed timelines, and they said that they've been dealing with this thing for about 5 years, and they really started to get more serious about trying to resolve it over the last few months, and they're not really having any success. So they're kind of mentally beat up about, like, is this thing ever going to get better? Have I had it too long? Maybe I should address it sooner. And kind of questioned about, like, is there any hope for me because I've had this thing so long? So I always tell everybody that we normally don't see people, and I'm sure a lot of other offices that deal with any other types of aches and pains of the body, unless really, really severe pain. Most people don't see our clients until probably about a month or so after the initial onset, unless, again, very painful, or the person can't actually attend their sport or activity, such as you have a baseball player, they're not able to actually play the next game, then they may seek help a little bit sooner. But the recreational athletes, the runners out there, the recreational soccer players and so on, like, these people, a lot of times they say, oh, I'm just going to shut it down. The term is, I'm going to shut it down. I'm just going to shut it down for about a month here, and then I'll see what happens, and I'll come back. And I just need, like, I talked to one of my friends the other day. He has a heel problem. And he said, I think what I really need is just not the pressure to play for like a month. I just need more rest. And there is some truth to that. A lot of problems and aches and pains do go away with that type of scenario. But I guess my point is that a lot of times we see people after that initial bout of trying to self-resolve. Completely normal. I'm not saying that anyone's doing anything wrong by doing that. Obviously, it's more efficient to get information and examination by a professional who knows what they're doing with this type of condition early on. That way you're not making any mistakes that set you back. But when you've had it for longer, kind of circling back to the question, when you've had it for longer, there still is hope for you. What do they say? Like, the best time to plant a tree is today. So you can always try to work in an effort to try to make yourself a better version of your physical body and mental body today. And it's never too late to make some changes. But the problem that goes along with waiting too long is that there has been adaptation that's occurred, mentally and physically. And I'll circle back to both of those here. And this happens with not only athletic pubalgia or sports hernia, etc. It happens with other types of conditions. I've met many people who have knee conditions where they don't use, quote unquote, don't use their knees anymore. They stopped running because of it. They started biking instead, etc. So there's a mental aspect that goes along with a lot of these things, where the longer you have it, the more it becomes normal to be fearful of doing the things that past provoked it. And so what this can do is it can lead that person, it can lead you into believing that I'm just too old for this activity. I don't like this sport that much anymore. Maybe this is a young man's game. Maybe I should just stop. I've had my time. I beat my body up a lot over the last few years, and I'm paying the price. So these are all ways that people, I think, mentally cope with the lack of ability to actually play as they once did. Now, I've worked with a lot of people in their 50s and 60s who are super athletic. Like they still sprint, they still play the sport they want to multiple days a week. I remember talking to one gentleman that he was an interesting specimen. He actually stopped sprinting. He hasn't been sprinting since his 30s, and he was in his 60s. And so he came to me because he's having some problems with his groin or lower abdominal area with sprinting. And so I started talking to him. I said, "Why did you start sprinting?" He said, "You know what? I just realized, why not try? Like why? Like maybe I just don't know if I can do it anymore." And he said, "Lo and behold, yeah, it was hard in the beginning, but after about a year, I feel like I can sprint again." And I said, "Man, I love that. Like people should be able to sprint at any age. They should be able to jump at any age. They should be able to, like one of the most terrifying things sometimes to people is jumping up or down a curb." Sprinting across the street, falling on the ground. These are all things that like people are oftentimes afraid of after having an injury. Rightfully so, but when you do take the right steps, you can get a lot of these back, kind of this gentleman did. Um, Now the problem is the longer you have it, the more the body has had time to either create physical adaptations, mental adaptations, or just create compensations. Compensations, I wouldn't say are exactly the same as a physical adaptation. An example of people who have like ongoing abdominal problems or groin problems is that the physical adaptation that happens is their tendons in other parts of the body, saving their Achilles, which was conditioned for their sport, deconditions. And this is like the body is really good and keen at recycling things. And so it says, you're not using this tendon to this robustness, so why don't we just recycle it a little bit? Which sets you up for possible problems associated to not doing your activity, especially when you return to it if you've been gone for a long time. And you have to build that back up in a more structured way as well. Other physical adaptations are you guys have heard of scar tissue. I would lean more toward the discussion of adhesions or trigger points is probably a little bit more valid. Scar tissue, yeah, it does develop, but I think at some point it does arrest itself. But it does become firmer, like all tissues will become firmer. Even people who are just generally physically inactive anyways, their tissue is firmer. So the adaptation is the body becomes a little bit stiffer. And the longer that you've had this problem, the harder it is to overcome those things. Now, you can, but remember, if this was something where we were dealing with like a month ago, this is a very different timeline than 5 years from now. 5 years from now, yeah, it can get better, but your body has had 5 years to try to adapt around your current limp, your current lack of activity, and your current mental state as well. So physical adaptations can be with muscles, ligaments, tendons, fascia, bone, etc., even cartilages and so on. Mental adaptations, again, we already discussed them. Like people don't really feel like they want to or need to do those things anymore. I caught myself in this recently when we were, if you guys listen to the other podcasts I've done, or even I've done a YouTube video on this as well, quite a few actually. It was based upon my recent hamstring injury. And so I was actually limited in some fashion for about 3 months. I did go back and play. I play baseball. I went and played on Sunday. I hit balls. I jogged. I about 80% sprinted. We know that actually adding sprinting back in early can be helpful. If too soon, it can provoke it. But actually, if you go into the acceleration phase, most people don't have any problems when you hit top speed. So I was working with the parameters that I have, and I really attempted to not have my mental or have a fear associated to sprinting again. And so I caught myself last game. I finally stole a base, or sorry, I tried to steal a base. I got thrown out, but the biggest win of actually trying to steal was the fact that my body or subconscious realized that I actually did not have my hamstring explode, that it's not going to get worse. I felt perfectly fine after. I felt great. So really overcoming your mental fears associated to the old injury, the thing that aches and pains, is a really big part. And then there's compensation. They found actually for all of you who are research junkies, you can go ahead and look all this stuff on your own. You can look up PubMed or Google Scholar will probably find something to the same degree. But people after they've had hip replacements, their limp actually doesn't really change unless they've been coached or rehabbed out of it. So their structure has changed, but their movement patterns have really not. And so part of the problem that usually brings these athletic pubalgia, sports hernia, abdominal, or adductor injuries in the first place is usually some form of compensation. It's a compensation either from around like a stiff hip, or even like shifting to a side away from an old knee injury or an old foot injury. And these things can clearly be seen on movement assessment. I've done it many times in our virtuals. I've done it in person. It's not really hard for a trained eye. And then normally you give an intervention to try to change that, and you can actually see the person, their movements actually change very quickly. Whether it sticks or not is a whole different story. A lot of times they need to spend a little bit more time doing some of their homework on a weekly or bi-weekly basis on their own, because old habits die hard. Again, this is a 5-year habit. We're not going to change it overnight, but you can see changes immediately after doing the correct intervention, like an exercise or a stretch or so on, but you still may need to have the person do more of it to develop a new habit. What do they say? 29 days to develop a habit. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think there is some truth to it. Now, if you guys are looking for help with this type of thing, I would love to help you. Sorry, I'm reading some of the comments here. We have our telehealth services, 714-502-4243, or we also have some of our things online, our programs online. Actually did a we called it a virtual surgery. It was actually on YouTube. It's completely free. It's 6 weeks worth of just the stuff that we typically do with really recent injuries. Again, not everybody really has those. There is fine nuances to that, though. Everybody's coached a little bit differently. Not everybody's exactly the same. Everybody has different architecture or timelines, etc. But as I tell everybody on the phone when I talk to them, we don't hide any exercises from anybody, but it's ridiculous to think that one way of coaching the exercise, the reps, sets, dosage, intensity is the same for everybody, because it's not. Different for different age groups and activities and sports and so on. We also have an 8-week program after that, which is a more advanced version, or we have our one-on-one attention, which is kind of more of a cheat code. We actually, when we go through our programming, we write down the things that we would do with a quote-unquote stereotypical case. And so if it's a newer injury, we do our virtual surgery. When we do one-on-one, we kind of break the mold and accelerate the person as soon as possible. And then the latter ones too, it's like we start with one part of it. I think in week 2, we actually add deadlifting in. If you've deadlifted before, why would we start you with form or really nominal weights? So there's everybody's a little bit different with it. And I hope you guys understand that. And this goes for probably everybody's YouTube videos, whether it be for home improvement or physical therapy or whatever it may be. Like, these are based upon certain circumstances. They're not specific to everybody. But if you guys do want some help, we can offer to you. I'll put the links in the... Actually, I won't do it. I'll put it in the podcast. So I'll put the links in the bottom of the podcast, but for the YouTube Live, I'm just going to leave it as so. You can search our channel for those topics, the sports hernia videos, etc., or go to our website, p2sportscare.com. P2sportscare.com. I'll see you guys next time.